What's up everybody, it's RobinGaming here. So Far Cry 4 leaves me in a little bit of a dilemma. What exactly am I supposed to rate a game on? Is it the overall quality of the product, or is it the way it innovates from a previous installment? Because Far Cry 4 is a great game, was a lot of fun, and I had a blast playing it. I think it's a game that I can pretty much recommend to anyone who is a fan of the genre, which is the first-person shooter slash open world genre. At the same time, the resemblances to Far Cry 3 were so clear that I honestly thought, with all these amazing games coming out at the end of this year, we have like around 5 or 6 great games coming out all in the same month, maybe even the same, few weeks. And people have been asking me, Robin, which game do I get? And then it's really hard to recommend Far Cry 4 to someone if they have already played Far Cry 3, because it is so similar to that game, and if you have already played it, then it's just hard for me to tell you to play Far Cry 4 when you maybe already are like very familiar with the experience. So yeah, let me just get into my review for Far Cry 4. Let me go a little bit more in depth. So of course, I always start off talking a bit about the story, and I think that's really not the best way to start off this review, because honestly, that's just not what the story is about. The story is very, very forgettable. You play as AJ Gale, who kind of like goes to this country that's called Kyrat. It's a mix between Nepal, Tibet, maybe India in some way as well. He goes there to scatter his mother's ashes, and very soon he meets the new villain, which you will get introduced to in the first 5 minutes or so, and before you know it, you are involved in this whole rebel thing where you're helping this organization called the Golden Path to pretty much take over the country and defeat Pagan Min, the main enemy. Now, Pagan Min is a great character. It has already been said in some other reviews. He is just not very, very present in the game. You get introduced to him in those first, 5 minutes, like I said, gets a very nice dialogue, but then after like 10 minutes or so, he's gone and you won't see him until very, very much later in the game, and he will still be on radio channels and stuff. He's just not very present in the game. All in all, I think you'll see him maybe less than half an hour in the total game, which is a little bit of a shame. But like I said, you get to this organization called the Golden Path, and you'll soon find out that it is pretty much being led by 2 people called Amita and Sabal, and throughout the game you get these kind of like choices to side with one of the 2 characters, and it really wasn't all that special. You just choose the character you think has the best ideals, and then yeah, once you side with him or her, you just do that mission, and then of course, I mean, in the end it's not really that much of a spoiler, and honestly I don't think you should care that much about the story in Far Cry 4, but of course you're gonna have to choose between one of the 2 and stuff. But really, as much as they said that my choices would have consequences, they didn't end up having any consequences, and especially the way they ended off the story with Pagan Min was very weird as well to me. There's different choices you can make there as well. Honestly, it just wasn't as much of a great payoff, and I in the end just didn't care too much about the story, where in Far Cry 3 I thought the story was actually surprisingly enjoyable. Here I just didn't have that same feeling. So then we get to the presentation. Now, Far Cry 4 is a cross-gen game, comes out on the PC, on all the Xbox platforms, all the PlayStation platforms, and I played it on PS4. It looks great, plays at a very stable 30 frames per second. Like I said, the setting is amazing, the setting of Kyrat, which is this mix between Nepal, Tibet, India, and once you just get in one of these vehicles and the radio channels kind of like starts and you hear this typical Indian music and like Indian commentator over it, it's very, it definitely gets you in the it gets you very immersed in the game, and I think it's great. They did a very good job there. But what Far Cry 4 is really all about is the gameplay, and Far Cry 4 is a first-person shooter with a Ubisoft style open world, and that means you can totally expect the same that you get in all these Ubisoft games, like for example Assassin's Creed. You have a main path to follow with around 30 missions in total, I think. Then there's side quests to follow. Some of them are really enjoyable. For example, you get to Shangri-La, which is this mythical kind of like country. You play as a completely different character, just for like 4 missions in total, and it has a nice variety there. There's also random encounters and missions you can do along the way. For example, you'll see these trucks that you need to take over while you're driving in your car. All of that stuff, it's completely what you can expect from a Ubisoft open world game once more. Then also what you'll really be busy with is taking over bell towers, outposts, fortresses, and as I said before, it's just the complete same from, what Far Cry 3 was. These bell towers are kind of like, they are small puzzles that you'll get introduced to, You just have to climb on top of this tower, take it over, and from then on you kind of like unlock, you know, the part of the map, and you see what activities are available there. And then there's a few outposts in every kind of like area. You take over an outpost by, for example, going in stealthily or going in guns blazing. It's all, you know, your choice there. And once you took it over, then it's pretty much it becomes a safe area where there won't be as many enemies driving around in vehicles in that particular area. And these fortresses that are new in Far Cry 4 are pretty much the exact same thing as outposts, just in a little bigger scale. So that's, you know, that's a little more challenging, but at the same time, once again, it's just not that much different. The things they did add, for example, are the Gyrocopter, which is this little helicopter through which you can very easily, you know, like fly over the whole map, and you can combine it with your wingsuit that was already in Far Cry 3. It's just great. It feels amazing to kind of like just jump off a cliff, use your wingsuit, get to a certain outpost, take it over. Also, you now have elephants, which they promoted to be this very big feature, but it just wasn't that really. The elephants, you just come across them, you can decide to climb on them, and then you pretty much have two things to do. You can run with them, and at the same time you have one button for attacking. That's really all there is to it. They are just a nice tool to help you take over these specific zones. And then finally we get to the co-op and the multiplayer. Now, co-op works great, you know, you can just join a friend or a friend can join you in your world and do all these different open world activities like the bell towers, outposts, fortresses, the random encounters. You can do them all together, not the main path and the side quests, you know, which is a little bit of a shame, but still it's great fun to do that together with a friend. One thing that did kind of like have a negative, like that I just didn't like as much about it, is that when you take over a certain, for example, a certain tower in your friend's game, then that tower will still not be taken over in your own save file. I kind of wanted that kind of like progress to carry over in your own save file. It didn't do that, but the XP that you get for example, buying skills and you know, those kinds of things, those do carry over. So that's great. Honestly, the multiplayer I did not touch. I have to be very honest about it. I heard it's very standard, and really I just wasn't. I don't buy Far Cry for the multiplayer. You know, it's great that it's there, but I have different games that I play when I want to play multiplayer. And yeah, once again, I heard Far Cry 4 is just very standard in that aspect. It's totally not what I would recommend you to play when you get the game. So yeah, all in all, you know, this grade I'm going to give Far Cry 4, it's not going to be based on a multiplayer, just purely the single player and co-op experience that I had with it. And then we already get to the conclusion. Now, I don't want to sound too negative, because I had a great time with Far Cry 4. I want that to be very clear, but at the same time, it was so similar to what Far Cry 3 was, that I just have the feeling that if Ubisoft decides to continue this trend by releasing a Far Cry game every 1 or 2 years, and it's all the time going to be the exact same game, just in a different setting, then consider me out. You know, that's just not what I want from this series. At the same time, I'll tell you once more, I had a blast with the game, thought it was great to play, and once again, if you're a fan of first-person shooters, of open world games, this is a game you will want to pick up. But at the same time, have you played Far Cry 3, and are you looking, or are you like anticipating many games at the moment, and are you deciding which one, you know, you want to get? And I would say maybe think twice whether you actually do want this game, because it is very similar to Far Cry 3. So that being said, Far Cry 4, amazing game, just a little too similar. So I give Far Cry 4 a 7.8 out of 10. Thanks a lot for watching.